directed transmission 1 of The Signal.
My name is Dan Bush. I directed transmission number 3 of The Signal.
My name is Jacob Gentry, and I did number 2.
Hi, Chad McKnight and Jim Parsons.
I'm Scott Poitras. I play Clark, and he is in all 3, I guess.
I'm AJ Bowen, and I play Lewis Denton in the film.
Well, the original idea came out of an Exquisite Corpse project, which is an old surrealist idea where you start drawing a picture and you hand it off to somebody else and you see what they can come up with. And we started playing around with these ideas and seeing if we could do a feature film in a similar fashion. And we were talking about the idea of the signal, the idea of this very pervasive transmission that goes out over all the airwaves and drives people to violence. And we realized that we really wanted to film, we wanted to do it in a unique way. And we wanted to tell the story of these 3 different characters from their different perspectives, and then we wanted the style of each of those sections to have its own sort of like logic, its own vibe, its own world, its own feel, and that this whole thing should be kind of maddening, like The Signal to watch, and that it should feel like channels are flipping throughout all of these different broadcasts. And it was just it was a really fun stylistic choice that honestly scared the hell out of us from a logistical point of view. It seemed very challenging, but also seemed to kind of capture the madness of the story. In a sense.
The device of the perspective. So from each perspective, you can at the end, there's 3 different vantage points at the end of the world. So from that, we were able to each helm our own part and give it its own sort of voice.
I was just going to say that we all have ideas of tone, and we all 3 have different ways that things scare us. So we were all throwing our hat in the ring in terms of what that is. So hopefully the movie will be 3 times better. You'll get 3 times as much as you usually do because there's that much more involved. We had this sort of indie, like punk rock kind of like community of filmmakers in Atlanta, and it did work a lot like, in all honesty, it did work a lot like sort of a music scene where we'd show we would make short films and we would show them at bars and coffee shops and we would put on these multimedia events, and we sort of were just fans of each other's work, and I think that we had always sort of been like, oh, I like what you have to say. It's totally different than what I do. You know what I mean? But those 2 things, I have room in my head to appreciate other, filmmakers, and I think it's just a mutual appreciation of each other's work and style, and just being like best friends is just like really helps to, make a movie together.
There's millions of transmissions in the city of Terminus. There's millions of stories, and as much as there are, inhabitants of that mythical city, and so these are just 3. These are just 3 stories, and then.
Terminus is the original name for Atlanta. So Terminus is to Atlanta as like Gotham, which is our hometown. It's where we're from. So it's kind of the same as Gotham is to New York City. Terminus. Also, when you take it and you put it in a slightly fictional context, when you put it in a slightly fictional context, then it kind of becomes every town. It becomes about everything instead of. The logistics of, well, it's happening in Atlanta, is it happening in Cincinnati or Minneapolis, just seem kind of boring to us. It's like, if you create this one idealistic sort of place where it's all going down, then that kind of speaks for everything. It speaks for the whole world, and it just seems more fun to us in that sense.
Yeah, especially in science fiction movies when there's like apocalyptic, and New Yorkers know this better than anybody. It's like, there's no way you can get from the village to Midtown in that amount of time, and it can pull you out of it. And I think that's what Dave's saying is just you have sort of if you make it slightly mythological in terms of where it's an alterverse of sorts, then it can be everywhere.
I think that it was the best, it's the opportunity that you hope for as a performer, because typically in a film, the way things are written, not to discredit how a lot of other projects work other than this one, but you're typically asked to play one note. And so when we're reading the script, we don't really view it as tone A, tone B, tone C. I've got to plug into the comedy part. It was just a multi-dimensional, fully fleshed out human being for a change. So all we seem to want to do as performers is to get the opportunity to show more than one side to a character. It makes him more sympathetic. It resonates with more people that way. And so that wasn't difficult at all.
Not at all.
I mean,
just get really familiar with the script, and having 3 fantastic talented friends who are also really, really good at what they do, when they each create a playground for all of us to when all three can create a playground like that for us to come and just have fun in every day, and it's just like, it's thrilling, it's a lot of fun.
We're going to try and transcend the genre, but we knew we were definitely making a genre picture. So, you know, we're all huge fans of that stuff. And I mean, that's not all we do. We don't just make horror movies or sci-fi movies. We've got lots of other projects going on. You know, but with this, we were like, okay, how can we take this genre, or you know, and use that and figure out a way so that that potential maybe limitation becomes something that encourages more creativity. How do you actually inspire? How do you find some larger message or ask some greater questions of the human condition within the genre? How do you do it? You know, that was the challenge. So.
Well, a lot of it came from, I mean, you know, the Exquisite Corpse project I talked about, we'd started way back in 2003, so this is, you know, we've been working on a lot of projects, and this was one that we've been playing around with here and there, but I joke a lot about 2004 just being, it was election year, so it was this year that like I particularly was really plugged in, and afterwards I canceled my cable and just signed off, and was like, I can't handle it anymore. But I was watching a lot of cable news, I was addicted to C-SPAN, there was constantly noise in the apartment, I was listening to a lot of talk radio, and it was just this feeling of being completely over inundated in noise in media, and all of these voices panicking to get their own word out, so they're all screaming with all this like, you know, severity, everything that they're talking about, they really need you to hear, and you can kind of lose yourself in it, lose your own sense of identity, and it was very agitating in a way. And it's not, you know, it's pretty easy to connect the dots. You're driving around between this and possibilities of road rage and going, what would happen if you took all of that and condensed it into one feed, into one signal, and shot it out everywhere? Would it not drive you to madness? And is society not already on the edge? And if you push that first domino over, would the entire thing not just like crumble? And that became a fun idea. It became something that we could kind of play with.
Pretty male-oriented on this. Just getting laid. And I think, you know, I debating whether or not I'm the one character that was infected by the signal or not, because, you know, I like to say if we choose that he is infected by the signal, his general desire is pussy, so he's sweet, he's harmless, he's lonely, and he's just oblivious, because he's just got the signal amped up on, focused on finding one thing, where in general, where people are walking the streets with the same tape running in their head, whatever that thing is that disallows them from being conscious. So that was one choice, or he's not infected by the signal, and he's the exact same person.